Hello everyone, my name is Christian Eschbach, and welcome to another one of my album reviews. We are covering the very last Black Sabbath album to feature Ronnie James Dio on vocals, and it is arguable on whether or not you could call it a Black Sabbath album, because technically it is under the name Heaven and Hell, and we are talking about The Devil You Know. This album features Tony Iommi on guitar, Geezer Butler on bass, Ryan James Dio on vocals, and Vinny Appice on drums. And I'm going to say Appice because that is the way that Dio always says it on live albums. He always says Appice, so that's how I'm saying it. Now, that is also the exact same lineup that did the Mob Rules album. Not the same album. Not the same lineup from the Heaven and Hell album. That album technically had Bill Ward on drums. But this is the same lineup that did the Mob Rules album and was the same lineup that did the Dehumanizer album. So, by all intents and purposes, this is the same lineup, same band. It's Black Sabbath. I belong to it's not Black Sabbath without the four core original members group. I've talked about that multiple times. My opinion has started to change as I've gotten into other albums, because I have gotten into more than just Dio and Ozzy at this point, and we're going to get into that in future reviews. So my opinion is definitely changing, where Iommi is more my kind of... Iommi and Geezer Butler, if they're both there, I'm definitely cool with it, depending on whose drums, etc., etc. Okay, so we're moving on. All right. This had to be released under a name different than Black Sabbath because Sharon Osbourne is a fucking bitch, and she refused to let them use the name Black Sabbath because Black Sabbath had released the Reunion album, and there was talks about putting a proper Black Sabbath album together, and bullshit. I don't like Sharon when it comes to Black Sabbath and when it comes to Ozzy. I think she's helped keep Ozzy alive. I think she is the only reason Ozzy is still breathing to this day, so I can thank her for that. However, I definitely question a lot of her business decisions. All right. Let's get into this album. First off, track 1, Adam and Evil. You know right away this is Black Sabbath when this song comes on. There is no denying it for a second. This is slow, dark, heavy. It's Sabbath. There is a great use of multi-tracking on the vocals on here. It's really, really well done. Not something that Dio uses a lot in the earlier days. He started using a little more later on. And when Dio uses it, he uses it right, thankfully. He doesn't do it in a stupid way. It really just kind of adds to his vocals. I hate to say it, kind of Ozzy's up his vocals just a little bit. But I gotta point out that the title track, Adam and Evil, it's a lot, and it's Atom, Atom, and Evil. It's a lot cheesier sounding than it really is. Really good. And the first solo in here has this really interesting 80s blues rock kind of vibe to it, which is kind of cool. From there we go on to Fear. This one has more of a modern flavor to it, incorporating riffs that sound very Middle Eastern kind of. Vibes and flavors that Iommi explored more when he was doing his solo album, stuff like that. Styles that became more commonplace post 9/11 in a world where we were more into accepting Middle Eastern culture again, because 80s and 90s were not pretty good. We're not good at all for that. You know, you had a lot of it in the 60s and the 70s, especially the 60s. And going in through this bit of the 70s, when you get into the 80s, it was all gone. And then you start, like I said, so you start off that way. It moves into something a little bit more standard. When it comes to a lot of the Heaven and Hell slash Dio Sabbath songs, this one tends to come across more distinctly as a Dio kind of track. Uh, this may be one of the only songs on this album that I'll say seems a little more Dio, a little less Sabbath. But it's still better than a lot of the later Dio stuff I had been listening to prior to discovering this. I should mention, I had no clue that this album existed up until recently. I don't know how it got past me, probably because it was released under Heaven and Hell, probably because Sharon did a great job of burying it. I don't know. I know they had gone out on tour. I didn't realize that this album was part of the tour they were out on. Kind of threw me off. And I'm kind of sad I didn't know that. I would have picked this album up probably a lot sooner. Next up, we're into Bible Black. This one has this really pretty acoustic with some sexy kind of electric guitar fills throughout it. It slowly builds up and does this great job of just creating a ton of atmosphere as it goes. And then it gets real heavy as Heaven and Hell. Sorry, I wrote that down. I had to use it. Okay. Next up, Double the Pain. And this one is kind of like, it opens up. It's like, well, hello, bass. It's nice to hear geezer doing something a little bit different with the effects. A little distortion, a little wobbles. It sounds really kind of nifty. I was digging in it. Not exactly sure which effect he used to create it. Either way, it was nice. Then it goes into the rest of the song. For the most part, this one's kind of an album cut for the most part. And this is probably one of the only other tracks I will call a Dio feeling kind of track. Once again, better than a lot of the other stuff Dio had been releasing. And the bass parts of it do remind me of some of Yeezer's solo bass work, which I should get around to reviewing. I do have the albums, I just haven't gotten to them yet. After that, we're into Rock and Roll Angel. I really dig this song. Really actually dig on Rock and Roll Angel. But let's be clear, it's an album cut, okay? But solid album cut. Album cut all the same. Then we hit Turn of the Screw. This one just screams Black Sabbath. Any vocalist I have heard from Black Sabbath, whether it be Ozzy, whether it be Dio, whether it be Gillian. That's right. Ian Gillian, Deep Purple. We're going to get into that. All of them could easily sing this one. No problem. Go over the top with it. And it works. It's that Sabbath. Like, this song is that perfectly Sabbath that any of them, any vocalist that has ever been in this band could do this song. And should have. It really is a shame that there were as many ego issues as there were. I'll get around to that. Okay. Eating the Cannibals. I dig this song. Very Mob Rules. Very Mob Rules. Well, not being a copy or a mimic of that song in any way whatsoever. Just has this great essence, vibe, everything. Just screams Mob Rules. Follow the Tears. This one kind of actually reminds me of Bruce Dickinson's solo material. Specifically, I in my notes, I put down Welcome to the Pit. I believe that's the name of the song I'm thinking of. If not, I'll have to correct myself. Then we're on to Neverwhere. I was actually hoping this was kind of inspired by the book, which I don't remember the name of the author at the moment, Neil Gaiman. The Neil Gaiman book, Neverwhere. I've read it, great book. And when I read this and the first time listening through, I kind of thought maybe it was a little inspired by Neverwhere, and it could be. But if it isn't outright inspired by Neverwhere, maybe like its own separate side story through Neverwhere. Great rocker, though. And I don't talk about books too often, but if you get the chance, man, you should read Neverwhere by Neil Gaiman. Fantastic. Neil Gaiman is an underrated author. Okay. And then we finish with Breaking Into Heaven. This one closes out the album, and very big, very Sabbath, and very, very good way to close out the album. It could have started the album as well, in all honesty. This one has a real kind of cool Phantom of the Opera like vibe in it, somewhere around the 422 to 450 marker. A few of us actually started singing it all of a sudden, and not that they're using the actual Phantom of the Opera riffs. There was definitely this thing post 2000, and I almost want to say that might have been inspired by some other musicians where they all started pulling out Phantom of the Opera or parts of Phantom of the Opera, or specifically you start hearing the you know that whole part. Okay, so you start hearing that in a lot of music, and it pops up in here. So it was like, wait, hold on. But instead of doing it that way, it was kind of just playing the chords. Instead, it was a boo, 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 boo. So just doing kind of going through a normal chord progression that makes sense. But it really worked, really sounded good. But it kind of pops out, and you kind of like, wait, hold on. Um, would I recommend this album? Definitely. Oh wow, you should really check out this album. This album, I mean. To be completely honest, after Black Sabbath had released Sabotage, there are very few albums that I think are fantastic from beginning to end. Sabotage was probably the last album they did that was absolutely from beginning to end a fantastic, great album. Mob Rules was really good, but even then, there's still one or two songs where you kind of go, eh. This one wasn't bad though. I liked it a lot better than Dehumanizer. Uh, I think it pairs well with the Heaven and Hell album, almost, kind of. I don't know. Those are my thoughts. Those are my views. You know what I'm saying? And it is a good album for Dio to go out on. If this is going to be, if this unknowingly was going to be Dio's last album, it was unknowingly the perfect last album to go out on. I really do think it sums up everything perfectly that was Dio, as well as everything that was Black Sabbath. As I said, my thoughts, my views, my opinions. Let me know what your thoughts and views and opinions are. That's what the comment section is for. Drop me a line. Let me know what you think of this album. Let me know what you think of other Black Sabbath albums. Where do you think this compares in line with other Black Sabbath albums? I will have the Black Sabbath Dio Year's Rap Party coming up later on this month, in the month of April, the year of 2023. If you're watching this in order as they come out, if you're one of my old, if you're catching up on this as back catalog, you'll know where to find the next one. All right, folks. That's enough. As you're on your way down in the comment section, you will notice there is a link to Patreon. Please feel free to click on that. Please click on that. Please click on it. And hit the like button, hit the subscribe button, hit the little bell for notifications. Peace, love, take care.